We'll call the regular meeting of the New Ulm Economic Development Authority for Tuesday, August 14, 2018, 8 a.m. to order. First item on agenda is roll call. We do have a quorum. Actually, we have everybody here. Item number 2 is approve the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on any? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 3 from the EDA staff regarding administrative activities during the month of July of 2018. Heather?
We'll start with the Section 8 report. Note 85 vouchers on the program for the month of July. Housing assistance payment disbursements from HUD exceeded payments to landlords by about $1,500 for the month. Administrative fee expenses exceeded disbursements by $1,700. Note the unaudited balances for both funds on pages 3 and 4 of your report. And note on page 5, we have 81 vouchers on the program as of August 1st with a waiting list of 65. Staff continues issuing new vouchers, and we are also in the process of updating the waiting list. So next month you should see a significant drop in the waiting list number as files get closed. Moving on to the public housing report. As of July 31st, expenditures have exceeded revenues by just under $1,800. July is our first month of the new fiscal year. On page 8 of your report, notice Broadway House is fully leased with 61 on the waiting list. And on page 9, the family units are fully leased with 29 on the waiting list. Staff is also in the process of updating both of those waiting lists. And then I wanted to give you an update on the operating fund lawsuit that has been going on for quite some time. Recently, we're notified that the United States government filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit on April 18th. The lawyers representing the housing authorities filed in opposition to the government's motion on July 27th, and the government has until August 10th to respond. But it was anticipated that they might request an extension of that deadline. I haven't gotten an update to find out what happened there. But as we receive updates, we'll pass them along. Moving on to the EDA fund on page 10 of your report, note cash assets of $734,000. And I had on here an update to the Milford Heights lot sale that we did get majority of the homeowners to agree to the 3 years to build on Lot 7, Block 4 that the bidder had requested. The final vote results were 18 yes, 2 no, and 19 no response. The no responses were counted as no's. There's 29 lots in Phase 1, so we needed 15 yes votes to have a majority, so we exceeded that, and we were moving forward on the lot sale, which was scheduled to close tomorrow. However, the bidders came into my office yesterday morning and indicated that they wish to withdraw. So I'm working with the city attorney now on the cancellation of that lot sale. If there's no questions on that, we can move on.
Is there a reason they withdrew that we can talk about or not?
They felt a little bit like there was a lot of back and forth. First, we opened the bids, approved the bid, so they thought they had gotten it. Then we notified them that we had to go for this vote, so they had to wait for that. Then they found out they got it again. Then there was some question on the amount of the assessments. They were under the understanding the assessments were about $15,000, which was the amount of the initial assessments. But the new assessments with the street improvements, the total of assessments now is around $25,000. So they felt like they had gotten bad information on that, and they just felt there was just too much back and forth, and they just didn't feel like they wanted to move forward. So she says that I emailed her the amount of the assessments of the $15,000. I did ask her to forward that email to me. I tried looking back in my emails and I could not find that. But I guess I'd like to verify if I did give her bad information. I certainly apologize for that. It's possible that happened, but I'm waiting for her to send that to me. There's a question on, I should mention, on whether or not we should return their earnest money. I guess I feel if I give them bad information, I feel kind of guilty keeping the $1,000. But I would like to verify that, and I guess that would be a board decision, and I don't know if, because I don't have the information, if I'd have to bring that back to you next month for consideration.
Yeah, it's money.
So,
That might be fair, but I'd say bring it back to us.
yeah, I'm just waiting to confirm that they have that email.
Since we took this action to allow for that 3-year period, is that simply for this one particular sale, or could we use that since we've gone through the process of soliciting the votes from all the other property owners? If somebody were to come forward in the future and ask for this 3-year extension, could we use this vote to offer to a potential future home buyer to do that, or we'd have to go through the whole voting process over again?
My thought would be we'd have to go for another vote because the letter that went to homeowners was specific to this lot. I guess I could consult with the city attorney to get
Well,
his opinion.
I would favor us.
Specific to the lot. It wasn't specific to the buyer. So the
Any-
vote has been taken.
So-
And this lot, if somebody came in tomorrow and said, I'd like to buy that lot and I need 2.5 years, I think we'd be okay because it didn't apply to the buyer, it applied to the lot.
Well, the indication I get is that there were, at the end, I mean, along with the assessment amount, there was the back and forth, to me, represents maybe some red tape. They felt like it was taking too long. And when you're in a limited period of time for construction in this climate, I would think we would want to look at, could we do this for all the remaining lots potentially to consider removing these obstacles if this is going to be something that's going to get someone to prohibit them from buying it. Maybe we'd want to consider putting together these things for all the remaining lots in terms of the construction schedule and maybe some other potential obstacles so we can make it more enticing for people to want to go through the process of purchasing a lot.
As an option, you mean?
Yeah, we can act on it now and and not have to do this each and every time, I guess, is my thought. Because that's going to slow the process down. And I think that that's one of the things that we want to be aware of. Most people can go and buy a lot and close on it within 30 days and not take, several months in the process of acquiring a lot. And I'm sure that's probably what their thoughts were going into it, that it would be facilitated and closed, and they might even be underway with construction by this point.
So maybe if we could have staff prepare that for next month.
I would recommend that,
I think we should
guess.
consult with the city attorney and
Yeah.
come back for
Or
action
next
next
couple
month.
months.
Mhm.
And I understand we're a public board, there's things we can and cannot do, but I think if we can facilitate these transfers when they come, to as much as we can, to with the understanding that to at least reduce the red tape. I don't think we're going to completely eliminate it, but
Mhm. Okay.
As long as we're talking about the Milford Heights, I don't know if any of the commissioners have had a chance lately to go up to Milford Heights and looked. We have curb and gutter and all over up there already. It's really shaping up, and I'd like to say that I think we made the right decision when we decided to sell all that property off, and the speed of the sales up there is tremendous. And I'd like to thank Al Paler and Mark Schaefer. I think they're doing a hell of a job for us. So I know we made the right decision. If anybody
good up there.
hasn't looked at it, look at it.
Yeah, it looks like they're preparing to put in the street and sidewalk on their section.
They're actually selling them before they're even under construction, so it's just
Yeah.
been win-win all the way, so.
My last
Getting
count
it back on
was
the tax roll right away, and it's just great.
9 lots sold in the second subdivision. That was the last count I had heard, and he's got more buyers for the twin homes than he's got slated for construction right now. So there's definitely hats off to the people that did the housing study, because they really hit that one on the head.
So
As
there
far as
truly was
unmet
a
demand in the
pent-up
community,
demand.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I think
Yep.
that's great to see that that's happening.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll just note a quick Housing Institute update. Team members are working on a project for a new regional website, and we have started to send information into the team that's working on that to start populating information in there about our communities, and we're hoping that'll be ready to go live in the near future. I think it'll probably still be a month or two, probably. And then once that goes live, we can start sharing our promotional commercial that we mentioned last month. So, and I'll just mention again, the goal of the regional website is to assist those who are wishing to relocate to the Brown, Nicollet, Sibley County region, to direct them to information on home ownership and rental housing options in the area. Sounds like the new medical school in Gaylord is going to be going forward, and that's going to bring new people to the area that are going to need housing options. So we're trying to make that kind of a one-stop shop for the area. We can move on then to the Property Rehabilitation Loan Program. We have available funds of $272,000 there. We have 2 loans that are still pending. I don't know if Chris wants to.
Excuse me. Yeah, we still have 2 loans pending. The owner who went out to get his initial bids came in a little bit higher than he was expecting, so he's trying to find other options. And once he finds something that's close to what he was originally anticipating, he'll move forward with the loan. So I have the applications are on file, just waiting for him to get the bids that he's looking for.
Good.
Okay. Note on page 13, the rental property fund, cash assets of $82,500. And moving on to the Garden Terrace report, Garden Terrace has 84 units leased with 58 on the waiting list. They currently have 4 vacancies. They had two turnovers last month, and they have 1 move-out notice for September.
You guys visited with the tenants about the rental assistance, the homeownership?
We did. I think that's included
It's
in
coming
that
up, I'm
action
sorry,
item.
okay.
Mhm.
Don't mean to jump ahead.
Anybody have anything for Heather? Seeing none?
If not, I'll make a motion accepting the Economic Development Authority's administrative activities for the month of July 2018.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 4A, consider awarding the bid for the Broadway House LED lighting retrofit project.
I'll
Heather?
move it.
Okay, go ahead.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I didn't even catch who that was.
That's
Was
an
that
amount,
Les?
that's the Paul's Electric, an amount of $8,103.
Very good bid comparison to
Who
the other one.
seconded?
so.
Who was the second on that?
That's me.
Mike. Okay, thank
Mike.
you.
Go ahead. Oh,
I seconded
all
already.
right. Any more discussion? Seeing none, entertain a motion?
We did
Or
it.
did we,
Yeah.
okay,
We're
we
all
did.
ready.
Sorry about, all in favor, there we go. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 4B, consider motion authorizing the payment of the public housing program claims.
Anything interesting here, out of the ordinary?
I don't think so.
If
We're
not, I'll
just-
move those as well.
Okay. Second.
We have a
that's
motion.
usually the amount
Pardon?
that's usually within the
Mhm.
variable amount
Yeah.
for the monthly.
No more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 5A, consider approving the Garden Terrace Apartment Commons Area Furniture Replacement. Heather?
All right, I did a walkthrough of both buildings back in June and kind of came up with a list of furniture that I thought we might want to replace. A lot of the common area furniture is original. The buildings are over 20 years old, and some of the furniture is starting to show its age with just outdated color schemes, fading, signs of wear and tear on the chair arms and things like that. Both of the buildings had the common areas repainted and carpeted, which gave the building a nice facelift. Updating the furniture is kind of the final step in giving the buildings an updated appearance. And I have had some tenants call, wondering if we're ever going to do that. So, like I say, did the walkthrough, came up with a list. You can see one thing that definitely needs to be replaced is the chairs in the Garden Terrace 1 social room. Those are wood kitchen chairs, but they have an attached pad on the seat, and those have been cleaned. They get stained, they get cleaned. They're just beyond cleaning at this point, and they do need to be replaced. The Garden Terrace 2 social room has wood kitchen chairs as well, but they just it's just all wood, and that's what I recommend going with in Garden Terrace 1 to kind of eliminate that problem. I also came up with a list of 20 armchairs throughout both buildings, 1 sofa and 1 love seat. I got quotes from both local furniture stores. The quotes were very competitive. New Home Furniture was slightly lower at $10,181. They also include, at no additional cost, removal and disposal of the old furniture, which Rooms and Rest does not provide. So getting rid of the old furniture would have been up to us to figure out. So just because of the kind of the high dollar item, I thought I'd bring that to you for approval instead of just going ahead on my own. So if there are any questions.
No, but along the same lines, I had a call from a resident up there, and they made the comment that since we have, we say maybe some excess revenue or whatever coming in and stuff like that, rather than using it for other programs and stuff, that we actually look at window replacement and stuff like that, because they say there is leakage in the windows and stuff, and they are 20 years old also, and maybe do some improvements in that area. So it's something we should be looking at, every maintenance, not just chairs, everything else. We really have to look at the whole building.
Right, and that window issue keeps rearing its head. We did go through the building with on-site maintenance staff and Ryan Wire, the city's facilities maintenance director. And it was his opinion that unless we really want to spend a lot of money on a higher grade window, we're not going to get better windows than what we've got in there now. He just did not recommend replacement, but if you want me to move forward on quotes on that, we'd have to figure out what quality of window we want to go with and get quotes. And, we can move forward on that. What I've been telling tenants when they complain about their windows is, have you had maintenance in to look at them? And a lot of times they say no. I said, well, the first thing we should do is look at them and see if the seal needs to be replaced. If that's not the issue, we need to figure out what the issue is that they're having and see if we can fix it on a case-by-case basis. I don't know if it's warranted to go in and say we need to replace all the windows in both buildings.
But on the other hand, I don't know if it's warranted that the people should have to ask us, because some of the people are real shy and quiet. Everybody isn't going to come forward. So maybe that's something we can take on ourselves, is hire somebody or whatever, have somebody go down there and walk through and look at everyone, rather than wait for them to call. That was also the comment this person made.
Right. So do you want someone other than the city's facilities maintenance
Well, we've had 2
supervisor to go
units
through
that I
and
know
look?
of that we've had mold in, and that people have contacted me, and we've had facility people go in and take a look at. And we have single pane windows, so they're 20-year-old windows. They're old. And the sealants are starting to fall apart, and they can be resealed, my understanding. I don't know how all that works. But it's Minnesota. They probably should be double pane windows. Our homes are double pane windows, but these are single pane. And so that a lot of people have been telling, and I shouldn't say a lot, a number of people that live in there talk about the frost in the winter, where their windows will totally frost up in the winter because they're single pane. And then, of course, when they melt in the spring or on warm days, then they get condensation all over the wood. And I don't know how many people talked about towels that they have in the windowsills. And it's just not a good way for us as landlords to be providing us a building. So I think we should look at something better. And I don't know what that means. So I guess I need more information. So maybe we should have somebody look and see what that cost would be.
Well, I'll back you up on the calls, because I've had calls and I've been down into the office saying, what do we do?
I think before we start a rental or a first-time homebuyer program, and those are wonderful and great ideas, we need to take care of the people that got us to that situation first. And so let's see what those quotes come in at, and Ryan, I'm sure, can help us with that and give us some ideas, and let's see what they cost. And especially on the northern side, I would assume that's where we're having the biggest
think
issues,
so,
I
yeah.
would guess. But again, Ryan can maybe give us some advice on if it has to be all the windows in the building or just the northern side of the building, or.
I think if you do some, you might as well go the whole package.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you'll be piecemealing it and it'll cost more.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to hear.
And it's going to add value to the apartments anyway. It's, I agree.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we got to take care of our product. It's our building.
Okay. And let's back to the furniture issue.
Back to this, I like the idea. I think it's been 20 years. I'll offer the motion to approve the furniture at the low bid.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 5B, consider Garden Terrace garage furnace replacement project and authorize staff to solicit bids.
All right, we've been talking about this item for several months. Maintenance was able to get a sort of preliminary estimate for budget purposes, so I am asking for authorization to move forward on this project and solicit bids to replace both furnaces in Garden Terrace 1 garage and Garden Terrace 2 garage. We look at it as a preventative maintenance issue. The original furnaces it's getting harder to find parts when they break down, and we don't want them to break down and be in a situation where we're in an emergency repair and having to pay whatever the cost may be at the time. The gas and water pipes for the buildings run through the garages, so that needs to be heated. We look at an estimate of $75,000 to replace both furnaces. I think that's probably a little high, but we'll find out when the bids come in if we move forward.
I'll make the motion approving Garden Terrace furnace replacement project and authorize staff to solicit bids.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 5C, consider awarding Garden Terrace exterior painting bid. Heather?
All right, so we went out for bids on this project. This is to paint, every apartment has an outdoor patio and deck area with railings that need to be painted as they're starting to show their wear and tear. Let's see. It was last painted in 2012. At that time, the cost was $19,300. The current low bidder, South Central Painting, was the low bidder at the last time we went through this, and they did a good job, and they lasted 6 years, which is about typical for this type of exterior paint. We had estimated the cost for this project to be between $35,000 to $50,000, so we estimated high on that. The bid came in at $19,300, so we were very pleased.
I drove
Or
by
I'm
this.
sorry,
Oh.
the bid came in at $22,500.
Yeah.
When I drove by this the other day, I was looking at, what are they going to paint? It's all sided. I mean, the whole building is sided, but there is little bits of wood here and there, and I suppose it's
Yeah.
because it's just odd spots.
And it's hard to tell by driving by. They
Yeah,
still look
it's all
nice, but when you
siding,
go
and then the
into
decks
an
are being
apartment and
painted.
you go out on the deck and you're there, you can see it. It is
Not much,
chipping
but
and
it's,
peeling.
I'm sure it's ladders and odd spots and.
Yeah, and we have received some tenant complaints on that, so they're very happy to hear that we were already in the process of taking bids.
Well, it's in my ward, so I'm going to offer this motion again.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 5D, consider authorizing staff to work on a landscape architect for Garden Terrace.
Starting to
Other-
feel like this is a Garden Terrace meeting.
I know it is.
A lot of items. So Chris and I were over at the buildings a couple weeks ago and kind of did a walkthrough of the outside, looking at the landscaping. And we kind of came up with a list of some areas that could use improvements to improve the curb appeal, maintain resident satisfaction, and increase property value. There's a landscaped area near the corner of Garden and Oak Street that's overgrown. They have several mature trees in the area, and the roots are kind of coming up through the lawn, which is making it difficult to mow in that area. So I think we need to look at doing something to improve that corner. There's also an area south of Garden Terrace 1 that has a low spot. They have a difficult time keeping grass growing there. Kind of, it's just a large area of ground where there's nothing growing, and it's very unsightly, and the tenants are complaining about that area. Also, behind both buildings, there's a steep hillside, and from what I was told, when the buildings were built, they sprayed native grass to grow on that hillside. And I don't think to my knowledge, it has not had any maintenance. When I was talking with ISG landscape architect, she was asking me if we've ever done anything back there, and I said, well, I don't think so. And she said it should be mowed or burned periodically to maintain it, which I don't think has been done. She said the burning is a little tricky in a urban area, but, so mowing might be the way to go. But we're just looking for their recommendations for affordable options to beautify that hillside for the tenants with apartments that face the back. It just really kind of does look like a hill of weeds. So I don't know if there's any flowering plants that could be put back there to give them something a little nicer to look at. So Chris kind of recommended we might want to hire a landscape architect to do an inspection, give us recommendations, and help us to create plans and specs. Because we don't really, for us to go out for bids, we don't really know what we're asking for, so that's kind of difficult. We'd like to bring in an expert to guide us. So I got an estimate of what that might cost. At the low end, it could cost $7,000. At the higher end, the $10,000 would include the creating plans and specs and an estimated budget. So depending on the detail that we want from them, it could be on the higher end. They do have adequate reserve funds to cover this cost if the board chooses to go in this direction, but I guess that's what we need to know.
Were we also going to get rid of the buckthorn? Was that part of the?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. There is a patch of buckthorn that's growing that we did want them to look at as well.
We used to have volunteers that would attack the buckthorn, difficulties or locations, and they put a lot of effort into the community to clean up buckthorn. And at this point in time, they're offering assistance to tell somebody how to remove, but they aren't actually offering assistance to do the work now. It's been going on for, 10 years, 10 plus years. You can borrow the jacks from Park and Rec and actually go out and, pull them out of the ground, and you can do that, but it just takes people to do that. So we thought we'd add that to this if we're gonna do some landscaping, have somebody come in and do something, that they would also go on the hill and pull all that stuff out. And treat the bigger ones, so they don't grow back.
I guess relating to a comment Les made, I think we need to put some money into the place. I mean, if this is what it is, I would support it.
So we're willing to pay or looking to pay $7,000 to $10,000 just to get someone's recommendation. They're not actually going to do anything.
Right.
Would we be better served just to go out and solicit bids directly from landscapers and then, and with their bids, give us concept plans? Like some local landscaping companies? Would we save a step, maybe a little money in the process? Because ultimately, we're going to have to go back and get a landscaper hired to do the actual work, including, removing the buckthorn.
So what
I
you're
don't
saying,
know.
take the best design that comes forward that we like.
Right. I don't know.
Way to do it, too.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I understand people are wanting to spend money on Garden Terrace, but could we do it a little better? Just going right to, I think everyone's identified, hey, this needs some work. We need to do something updating and some maybe get some different looks and feels. But I think some local landscapers could probably provide that for us, and then we could select a bid based on both price and a concept plan that they bring forward for us. So I don't
Could do that, they're gonna ask us, how much do you wanna spend? We're gonna have
know.
to say,
7 to 10,000? No, I'm sure it's going to be more than that, but
Keep in mind, anything over 25,000 we have to actually go out and get 2 quotes
Sure.
for the project.
Could it go a maximum not to exceed 25, and then we're covered our butt?
yeah,
See
I
what
don't know.
happens. It doesn't cost
I'm
nothing
just
to
throwing
try.
that out there because all this is going to give us is some ideas, and then from there, we'll have to go out and hire someone to actually do the work. So I thought, well, I know a lot of landscapers will come out and draw up plans and give you a completed sort of concept, and they'll let you know what everything's going to cost.
and we don't have that many landscapers in town anyway.
I agree with Commissioner Brown as far as I think we could get more bang for our buck going directly and have the concept and the dollar amount, and it's priced, the plan is priced within the whole project.
And could we break it into 2 projects for Garden Terrace 1 and Garden Terrace 2, and then potentially have up to 2 $25,000 bids and do one, in one segment and the other in a separate segment? Or do we want to look at doing everything all at once?
I think we've combined the bank account now that both buildings were paid out. We used to be able to do everything separate, but we've kind of combined all the,
Well, I'm just saying for
If you wanna do
seeking
it-
bids.
If you want to do it and spread it out over, so let's say at 3 years, do one, and then 2 or 3 years later, do the other one, fine. But if you're going to do them at the same time, there's basically explicit state laws that says you cannot cut up your project in order to
Get around it.
get around the $25,000 to
$1,000.
$175,000 bidding requirements. So you'd have the city attorney saying, no, I can't do that.
Okay.
But if you said, well, I'm going to do this one this year, and I'm going to do my plan is to do the next one 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you can do that. But if you're going to do them at the same time,
What costs
well,
would we?
Brian, we're just talking about getting 2 quotes. We're not talking about a formal bid where we're advertising in the paper.
No,
So, I mean, we try and get at least 2 quotes on
on most
projects
everything.
anyway,
Yeah,
so it's not,
yeah. Technically, under $25,000, you could just go to one person, one company, and just say, I want this done. That's what the state law says.
Mhm.
We historically, for $500 chairs, will say, go to 2 furniture places and say which can give us the best bang for the buck. So we would likely go out and get 2 quotes anyway, at least 2, and then we're required to hold on to those for a year. In case somebody has a question about it, they can open up the file and say, here's what we did. But answer your first question, I would not recommend splitting projects because that would,
Well, I would think overall, if we bid both of them, we're going to get a better price
yeah.
overall, yeah.
But I don't see any reason why we can't identify these locations, say this is what we want, remove the buckthorn, we got a problem here, give us a suggestion. You do run the risk of the low price isn't tied to the best suggestion.
Yeah,
You know, you run that risk. And that's why we go out and we get plans and specs for roads and all other things, because then everybody knows exactly what's expected of them. It makes a much cleaner deal. But at the same time, I've seen, we'll be going out with the renew projects, and we'll be talking to architects, and we'll be, likelihood selecting an architect based on their background, knowledge, skills, and abilities, and possibly a concept of what they think it might look like. So we can do this. We can do what you're asking. It's not a problem.
We don't have to take the lowest bid if we don't like the concept that they are providing.
Correct.
Yeah, you have to
Right.
put, I think you have to put, when they're asked to come and submit, you have to tell them up front that, it'll, selection in part will be based upon not only just the quoted dollar figure, but also the project concept that they're.
Scope.
And they could propose more than one concept, 2 different prices, 3, whatever.
Yeah.
Let them have the options.
Yep, yep. Can be done.
This for this, we can do that for that.
Wonderful.
We want a goldfish pond.
See what
Right,
we
so if
get.
that's the direction, you'd like to go, we can try it and see what comes. See what comes
If it
of it.
doesn't work, we can always go back.
we go back to this
You
plan
can offer a
A.
motion to that?
I was just trying to bring up some discussion this
I know, you
morning.
gotta
I
figure out
don't
how to
know.
make that a motion.
I do like that idea, though. Go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess what I would offer would be that we would solicit quotes from landscapers to provide us with concept plans and prices for doing the landscaping for the Garden Terrace 1 and Garden Terrace 2 properties, to address, I guess, aesthetics, and my thought would be something that would provide with minimal amount of required maintenance, but, and I would say with hopefully something that would be native and be durable in our climate. That would be the sort of things I would be looking for. So how's that for a motion?
At the cost of up to $25,000.
Up to $25,000.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? My question is over 25, Brian, we have to have quotes, right?
More than one, right?
More than one.
Yeah,
So-
I don't
Do we
see
have to
that
set it
we
at
have to limit
25,000?
that.
We
I
wouldn't
don't
have
see
to.
that.
Because we could leave it open to get
Oh,
more
okay.
ideas.
What's
Oh,
the
alright.
dollar amount where we actually have to go for bids? It's higher now.
175,000.
Yeah.
So
We're gonna be
I guess
under
I would just say,
Oh.
we would
Better
just
not.
tell them that we're interested in spending approximately $25,000.
Okay, and see what we get.
And,
See what we
and
got.
provide, if we want to, we can say, could you provide us 2 quotes? One at
Right.
15 and one at, maximum 25, and.
One
that
with
can
the
be done.
goldfish pond and one without the goldfish
Yeah,
pond.
yeah.
We do not want to go.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, Les brought it up.
I like goldfish.
All right, we're at the 25, okay. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 5E, discuss draft rent and down payment program. Heather?
All right, so this one is coming back. We first discussed this at the July meeting. We took no action. We just took some feedback and made notes, and we were directed to meet with the tenants and conduct a tenant survey, which we did. The survey results came back. As far as would you use this program, there were 53 no votes, 4 yes, and 31 did not respond. So I assume then that they probably weren't interested. Couple items that we wanted to bring for further discussion. Should we move forward with this program? should the program be auto-enrollment or sign-up? There was a question if there's more than one leaseholder, who would get to use the funds if they're not purchasing a home together. There was a question on how to budget for the program. Do we need to put the money into a restricted fund, or could we just utilize the cash reserves when a tenant requests use of these funds? And also, should we limit the program to a certain amount of loans per year on a first-come, first-served basis to kind of manage the expenditures? If the EDA would like to move forward with the program, staff would bring a final draft for formal approval at a future time. Again, going over the budget, if every tenant at Garden Terrace used this program, we could be spending $440,000 a year. As you can see from the survey results, that's unlikely. We are anticipating, on the high end, 5 to 10 tenants a year actually utilizing these funds. So a more realistic annual cost is estimated to be up to $50,000 a year. And I'll just note again, the EDA could discontinue the program at any time if reserve funds are no longer available to support it, or if they just want to discontinue it for any reason. But in that case, the city attorney did recommend grandfathering current tenants that have, in a sense, put money away for this, that they still get it, but not offering it to new tenants who would move in after the program is discontinued. And I think then I'll turn it over to Chris. He wasn't able to be here last month, and Brian as well, to maybe bring forward some of the things they had questions on from your feedback.
Okay, so the program itself, at the end of the day, doesn't really cost anything to start up because it's taking the existing rent that they're paying and taking a portion of that moving forward. So the cash reserves you have now would never be touched because it's rent moving forward. And like Heather said, when we went out to talk to Garden Terrace, a lot of the residents there said, look around the room, who's going to use this? And because they had sold their house to move in, and we basically said, well, this is a program looking forward to the future, looking forward to residents coming in, maybe being here, finding a job at one of the local businesses here, needing a place to stay for a while. They're in it 2 or 3 years. They have this money now for a down payment. They can move out, and you have the turnover moving through in Garden Terrace. And a lot of the residents there seemed a little bit better knowing that their actual rent wasn't going to pay for that family that was there. The family was kind of their own little savings account, and that's the money that was being used for them to move out. I've been enrolled in a program like this in 2 different apartment complexes that I've lived in, and essentially I've left about $8,000 on the table because I didn't buy a house, after I moved out, and it didn't affect me in any way. It didn't affect any of the other residents because I needed a place to live. This was the rent I paid to live there. As far as it being auto-enrolled versus sign-up, it's just easier if everyone, when they sign their lease, they're just automatically enrolled because, again, it doesn't affect rent, doesn't affect any cash reserves. It's just the rent that they pay, and it's kind of just easier for everyone to be auto-enrolled in the program than asking whether or not they want to sign up. If there's more than one leaseholder, they would essentially just split that amount 50, if there's 2 of them, 50-50, however they want to split. And then I think they do have, I think it's 120 days after they move out to spend that money as a down payment. Outside of that money is no longer available to them. And I don't think you would need to put a limit on how many people are going to use it again because, by the survey, there's only 4 people in there right now. And annually, you probably won't be spending that much money because in the very first year, they're only going to accrue, I think it's like half the amount that they would need, so it'd be $2,500. So I think we figured in the calculation, it would be about, depending on the apartment size, 2 to 3 years to get the full amount, of the cap of $5,000. So, and it.
So this money will roll back then into a different fund once, let's just say somebody lived there 5 years and decided to move out, and they didn't utilize this, that money rolls back into the other fund again, or how?
Yeah, I mean, if you're just using it from the cash reserves, not putting aside a separate account, it would just be in the cash reserves.
Okay.
Which to me would be an easier method of doing, just keeping all the money in the cash reserves, because we're not really looking at, the entire building moving out at the same time,
Not setting up another account then?
Yeah, just when they move out, it's just there. You can pull the money out. Should be.
I guess I like the concept. Like with the survey, there's only, like you say, 4, so the actual cost isn't gonna be that great. And it is a option for the people.
Mhm.
And the auto enrollment is actually probably the way to go, then you don't have to worry, because you got 31 that really don't care. But they might.
Yeah, wasn't there some talk about this would be eligible for people that are already living there?
Yes.
Retro? Can
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so because we're introducing the program, we were looking at starting the accrual date on January 1st of 2017. So they would start accruing that money for rent paid January 1st, so they would get essentially a year credit to them.
Year and a half.
Yeah.
Why would we do that?
It's just an option. I mean, we can start it whenever you want, but it was just something because we're introducing the program. People that have lived there, a longer period of time could essentially get some credit moving forward. But we don't have to do that. It's up to you. Just an option.
I know one of our concerns we talked about last month is we had 48 some on the waiting list. So people that want to try and get in and want to get access to this program can't even get in. I know we're trying to clean up the list, so we don't know what that 48 number is. That's part of my concern, and we just talked about the potential of spending maybe $100,000 on windows or more. So I'm wondering if this is a program that sounds good, but maybe we want to put on hold for a little bit till we get some of this other stuff taken care of. I'd like the concept. I've had enough people talk to me that are living there that, are obviously the ones that are elderly and don't move there, so they didn't have to mow lawn and shovel snow, and they're like, what about me, as we talked about. Why do they get the incentive and what do I get? And it's a little hard to respond to those folks, but you do talk about, like you said, Chris, about what we want to do is have incentives for people, the doctors and business people that want to move into our community and want to buy a home, or not just those folks, but anybody that wants to move into our community, and we want them to move here. We need people to move into our community. So I think that's the incentive and the response that we have.
But on the other hand, we're only talking probably 4 people, and that isn't going to take place over the next couple of years. So, I mean, we are talking about $20,000 in the next couple of years. So
Right.
that will have no impact on whether we do windows or anything.
Well, and I
But-
think, too, the other thing to consider is, and how we can control that would be,
Limit.
well, yeah, what point we make it retroactive, because the more we make it, the further back we go, the more of a commitment we're making financially to potentially fund those people. So, if we want to provide this service, as well as looking at doing the maintenance that, we want to keep the building in great shape, I think there's easily a way to do that. And there's certainly enough money. We could probably afford to do both of these things just as they sit if we look at the money that's currently available in the account. So I don't think, my only concern about it, and I was raising questions last month, is that, and not to say it's ever going to be a worst case scenario, but we could potentially have quite a commitment if down the road a great number of people want to participate in this. And to me, in being involved with the housing situation in New Ulm, we constantly hear about the need for workforce housing, and this is one way I think where the EDA can be engaged in fulfilling not an overall solution to that, but at least doing a part in providing a gap for people to come to town, start their jobs, their careers, and then work toward home ownership. And as more single-family homes become available, this sort of service could bridge that gap for people to get to town, to get the job, and then work toward one day owning the home. So I think it's a great program from that standpoint, and it certainly is identified in one of our community needs right now. And I think this is a great way for us to step up as a commission and say, we can participate. This is a piece of property that we own. We do have some control over it. Obviously, anybody in the private sector wouldn't be talking about this kind of a program right now. And we have this opportunity to do so that wouldn't be available to a lot of other rental properties in the community. So I think there's a way we can make this work. My only concern is that, because I think, there's a lot of discussions about using the Garden Terrace funds for doing all these good things, and that this is one of those good things. I just don't want us to overcommit. So we want to be very careful as we move forward as to what we're going to use the money on and how we're going to do it. And I agree with you 100%, Les. I think our primary focus should be, number one, making sure that these buildings stay in great shape, and as time goes on and they get older, it's only going to get more expensive to maintain them. So that's something we've got to keep in mind as well.
I would recommend two things, that we would put a cap, an annual cap of 3 or 5, whatever that magical number would be, so you don't have 83 units all saying, I'd like to have a down payment assistance.
Right.
Okay. And then you can always adjust that as time goes by, up or down, whichever, you see as a board fit. The second recommendation I would put forth is that we don't tie this to the rent. We would just say $200 a month. I mean, the lowest is $154, the highest is $254, $247. Just say $200 a month.
Keep
That
it
way
kind
the
of
people that are paying rent aren't saying my rent. This is a program of the EDA, and we can use our revenues any way we want. By tying it to the rent, then you've got 78 other disgruntled apartments going, well, why don't you reduce my rent? This is not a rent-based, it should not be a rent-based program. It should just be an EDA program. And just pick a number. Whatever you want to apply on a monthly basis, let that be the number. And that way you take the rent figure out of it. That's what I would suggest.
I like that.
And I think too, along those lines, we could do a phase-in, like over a 3-year period, with it capped at what we would anticipate a top allocation that we would want to do. And then we can use that period of time too to see what kind of usage this would have, and then we could make adjustments either up or down to say, hey, I think we've got that covered. We've got enough set aside for that based on what our current needs are. And as long, and I'm just going to throw an abstract, $50,000, say. We'll put $50,000 aside, and that'll be our down payment assistance fund, and that's what our goal would be, to fully fund in over the next 3 years, say. And then after that, we'll see how much of that money we use on an annual basis, and maybe we need to up it. Maybe we're running out of money by June or whatever, and or maybe we hit 50 and we're just not quite doing it. So we'll keep it capped at that, and it's going to meet the needs. But I think going into it, we can't, until we get our footing on it and understand it a little better and just see what kind of usage we're going to get. I 100% agree. We should kind of put some sort of cap on it, just until we know exactly how it's all going to go.
I think financially we have to put a cap on it. If everybody was automatically enrolled, we'd have a contingent liability out there on our financial statement of $400-some thousand, regardless of their age or intent. And so we need a cap of dollar amount or number of units or both.
I'm aware of 2 tenants that moved in, didn't necessarily think that Garden Terrace was for them, and moved back out and bought a house. And the average age, if I remember back here a few years, we just kind of did a a thumbnail poll, and the average age of the tenants are like 78 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
So it does happen that seniors may get in there and then get back out and access this, because, I think we're kind of focusing on a younger tenant, maybe has, just starting a family, and this is an opportunity for them to get into the housing market. But there is a potential for seniors to use this too. So I would just say, set the program up, set your maximums, how many you want to do every year, see what happens in the next 2 or 3 years, and make adjustments as time goes by. It may be heavily used, may not be used at all. I don't know, but, minimally, if we only got 4, even if you added, a couple of no responses and said there's a few that would do it in that group too. So up to 6, So I don't think it's going to be a huge problem, but I agree that it creates a liability on the books.
I think there was also some misunderstanding because one couple that called me said, we sold our house. We want to just live here. We don't want to buy another house. So why am I supposed, or I don't want to buy this apartment. I don't want to own it. So there was, I think there was some misunderstanding, and I couldn't answer all the questions because I didn't have the background either.
I had one similar to, maybe it was the same person, but thought we were going to turn them into condos, so.
Well, why don't we just send this back to Chris and let him, he's got all of our comments and stuff, see what he could come up for a draft, and then
Yeah, I think
we
we're
can
ready
toss
to,
that around a few more meetings or whatever, and
well, I think we can, I would support a draft based on the discussion we had today to cap it and to phase it in and to set it at a set allocation of, say, $200 per renter. And then, the 2 names on the lease, split it. And if Chris brings that back, I'd certainly support it. Again, going back to, I think the EDA could go back to the greater community and say, hey, here's a program we're going to offer to hopefully address some of the workforce housing issues that we're facing in our community right now. And this is one part we can play in this. And it's the properties that we own and control. So, and I have to assume too that the tenancy in the Garden Terrace, I mean, we have tenants average, 10, 15 years being there. I mean, some of them have been there quite some time. And I don't, when you talk market rate apartments, and that's what these are supposed to be, we're really not going out and seeking long-term tenancy. It's just kind of happened to us. And this might be a way to move that needle a little bit differently in terms of the demographics, and that making it attractive to a more transitory sort of tenant where they may only be there 2 to 5 years.
Right. Yeah, Les had the concern about people on the waiting list not being able to get in. Well, if these 4 people that are interested take advantage of it and move out, 4 people off the waiting list can move in.
Right.
And, you want that turnover to provide those opportunities for people that are needing a place to
And I
rent.
think at least for a segment of the units that we control here, we would like to see that, some more turnover, just because it means more people are going into home ownership situations, and this is one way we can facilitate that. And
I
so-
like,
but
I
on the
like,
other hand, you still have people, I'll say like myself, where you got the baby boomers, don't want to own a home anymore, because they want to travel, they want to do this or that, so they really want an apartment. So you're going to have that, people that are going to be
Absolutely.
there for 15 years regardless of what you try, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, I don't expect all of our units to be turning over every 3 years. That's not a reality for the community, but I think a segment of
on-site
those.
caretakers would be very happy
Yeah.
with all those turnovers.
It's not a college town or whatever,
Go
In
ahead.
that
I like the
sense.
idea of this concept. It's great. However, with landscaping, the furnaces being repaired, or new furnaces, we are looking at possibly doing all the windows. I'd like to know before we go into this, do we have the budget for it? Because knowing that, the refrigerators may be getting old, the stoves may be getting old, and they're going to be needing to replace, and we're looking at a whole bunch of them, in the future. Granted, they might not get used as heavily as, a family, but still, looking at whether we've got the money to do this or not. I'm looking at, I don't want to be pour and do this. I mean, I like it, so if we've got the funds to do it after we do everything else, and what we're doing is for everybody, all the residents, and I do like that, you know, the windows and everything. So just asking to make sure that we've got funds available.
I believe our reserves are sufficient, that we can be looking into more of these type of things, and our reserves are gonna do nothing but growing because we do have it paid off now, so it's,
So we can do windows?
we can possibly do it. We don't know.
I don't know.
I know,
We'll
check
have
it
to
out.
see what the
Yeah.
quotes come
Hopefully.
in at. I have no
Windows are
idea.
By placing an
Yeah.
annual cap on how many you're willing to do, that reduces the liability.
And also phasing it in.
Right.
You know, we're not gonna, we can build up that
Yeah.
fund over a period of time. And I absolutely agree, the maintenance things should be a higher priority than this sort of program.
You do have enough information, Chris, to work on this, or maybe a small subcommittee, or do you have enough just?
No,
to-
I have enough
Okay.
Okay,
to
All right.
bring it back.
all right, then we'll move on to item 5F. Discuss revised home buyer assistant loan program draft.
Right, this was another draft program we talked about at the July meeting. Again, no action was taken. It was just introducing the draft and getting your feedback, which I took back to Chris. And let's see, he did make a few revisions to the original draft based on that feedback. We provided a redlined revised version of the draft here for further discussion. Couple items that we wanted to talk about. There was a question, should the loan program be income-based or limited to a percentage of the home purchase price? Should the loan program have graduated payments? I think originally we were talking no payments for the first 5 years and then payments, regular payments for the second half. There was talk about maybe starting payments after 3 years lower and then having them go a little higher as the time goes on. So we'll talk about that. There was a question on whether we needed to have a home inspection or was the appraisal sufficient. And also questions on if there are any subordinate loan issues. If, for example, if the homeowner wanted to take out a home equity loan to pay off their credit cards, how would that affect our loan? Again, I'll turn it over to Chris because I gave him the feedback. I think he wanted to talk about those items further.
So it really comes back to the commission. You know, I mean, do you want this income based? You know, I don't think it should be income based. I think anyone should be able to apply to it, but we could limit it to a percentage of the home purchase price. You know, in the application, we're asking that they have at least 3% down. So maybe we do 7% of the home price with a cap of $10,000. That way they have at least 10% down on the house. So, you know, that's one thing that you can take a look at. And graduated payments, I liked having the deferred payment for about 5 years, because if they're asking to borrow money, you know, giving them that 5-year period to kind of get things settled, their finances in a row, and then just having a regular payment instead of like, oh, $50 for the first, you know, 3 years, and then all of a sudden it's, you know, $80, you know, you have, your payment's just going to be, you know, $80 for the life of the loan, no unexpected jumps in payment, might be a little bit easier on the borrower. Then on inspections, I would prefer that they get an inspection so they know what type of house they're buying. You know, I went out, I can kind of look at a house and, that's kind of messed up or that's messed up, but the average person may or may not be able to distinguish those things. So we want to know that we're giving them money to buy a house that is suitable to live in. You know, there's no hidden surprises. So I would prefer an inspection, but again, up to the commission to decide. And then I just wanted to talk about subordinate loan issues because I'm not really familiar with that. So, you know, information from you for me to make a decision and come back with a draft on stuff like that, you know, is warranted on my part.
I guess I got a a comment. At the last meeting, we discussed about, I see it's still in here, we said a 4-year college degree or graduate from a trade school. I thought decided to scratch that and just that they had a New Ulm student.
Oh, I thought we talked about a 2-year or a 4-year degree. That's what my notes said,
Yeah,
to attract the blue-collar workers as well. You were saying a 4-year degree was maybe too much, that we need the blue-collar workers, so then we
Right, but I was,
said,
my interpretation
Oh.
was is to scratch it completely and just be a New Ulm graduate.
okay, well, maybe I got it wrong in my notes.
I don't remember.
Well, and my only issue I raised is if we're looking at workforce housing and bringing people to town, I understand where we want to try to retain the young people that have graduated from here, but I don't want to preclude or exclude, I should say, anybody that might be coming to town and that could take advantage of this program if they're going to be a worker, and, you know, depending, not even considering their education level, but to give them the opportunity as an incentive to attract workers to town, again, would be, I'm thinking workforce housing. This is a great program for that, to attract, you know, potential employers can say, hey, the city of New Ulm has this great down payment assistance program that we can help you, you know, if you come to work for us in our community, you can take advantage of this down payment assistance program. So I have some reservations about limiting it to just only local people, you know, just to keep that in mind. And again, I can guarantee you, if we put money on the table, people are going to use it. So we do have to put limitations on it to make sure we properly leverage it to get the most bang for our buck. And that was one of the reasons I had put it and limit it to a percentage of the home purchase price. Because if we cap it at $10,000, I have a fear that everyone's going to come in and ask for $10,000. And with programs that are designed with first mortgage, affordable, first-time buyer type programs, we can put together a first mortgage loan with as little as 3% down on a subordinate type financing program for affordably priced homes to qualified buyers. And that's where the income limitations may come in, because those programs have a built-in income limitation. That doesn't necessarily mean we need to do it for our down payment assistance program, but I think what we'd want to do is try to dovetail it so that we can get as many people into home ownership as we can, using as little money of our own per transaction as we can. And that's why I think that we'd want to keep it limited to a percentage of, rather than capped at a dollar amount of, to make sure we do that. So, and we can write that in the language of the program, that it would be capped at $10,000, but it would be considered upon a percentage of the purchase price of a potential home that a participant would want to go in and buy. The other thing with the graduated payments, again, this is a program for the first mortgage offerings out there. Loans that offer down payment assistance with deferred payments get to be excluded from the calculations of their qualifying ratios if there's a 5-year deferred period. So that's one of the reasons I think we'd want to consider that, again, to match up our parameters with what the typical first mortgage loan programs are out there. So anyway, I brought the question of the inspection up too. I think the previous language had talked about having like a city staff inspector involved with it. My only concern with that would be to make it mandatory would increase the cost of acquisition. So I'm assuming any home inspection is going to come with a fee, and I just wanted to make sure we're aware of that fee being assessed, and that we don't want to put an obstacle up possibly for somebody not to afford the purchase of it because we put something in there. I support where Chris is coming from, where when people buy homes, I personally think home inspections are a great idea just to cover any potential issues that may arise before they go into a closing and everybody's kind of on the same page. So I would just want us to be aware of the potential added cost. That was my only reason for raising that issue. Last issue about subordinate financing, this is my lender talking. I've been involved with doing loans. You get people to come in and they want to maybe refinance their first mortgage, take some additional cash out to pay off some other bills, sometimes credit cards. I know there are programs out there where subordinate financing has been offered for down payment assistance where they'll prohibit that from going on. So we just want to, again, be aware of what we would want to write in for our restrictions or requirements if someone were down the road, we still have our second mortgage in place. Under what terms would we agree to subordinate down the road if somebody would want to come in and refinance their first mortgage and potentially take additional cash out? Would we want to put restrictions on what reasons those people would have for taking additional cash out? Would we say yes in some instances and no in others? I would just want us to be consistent on whatever decision we make with that. So that was kind of what I was talking about last month anyway.
Okay. And then just for clarification, the New Ulm student incentive, it's not restrictive. It's not restricting the actual program to New Ulm students. It's just an incentive if you were a student of New Ulm that when you apply, you can get portion of that loan forgiven. So
Gotcha.
anyone can
Okay.
apply for this down payment. It's just that if you are a New Ulm student, you can have part of the loan forgiven.
Additional incentive, but in regard to Charlie's comments in regard to the 4-year or 2-year, I think that might box us in. I mean, I don't know what all the programs are out there, but if we're talking workforce housing, if we're talking, there's 9-month programs in trade schools, there's 12-month programs, welding, metal fabrication, whatever it might be, and this might not, they might not qualify, even though, and also even if, I don't know, I mean, if you have a high school graduate that starts a job and learns a trade or whatever it might be, why are we limiting it to a 4-year or 2-year? Why is that caveat in there, I guess?
What we're doing is taking everybody that graduated from New Ulm High School, didn't go on to school and wanted to work at Kraft or 3M and buy a house. They don't qualify. To me, that's wrong.
Right,
Well,
we want to
This is a
maintain
draft.
kids.
This is only
Right,
a
that's
draft.
just
Yeah.
So we
input.
can
Right.
change anything. It hasn't been.
So basically, we want to keep our local kids, and we want the kids that go off to additional schooling to come back. So this is limiting it, I guess.
And we don't have to.
No,
So we can
We're
take
looking
those
for
out.
feedback.
just
Are
scratch them
you, are
again.
you opening a possible legal battle if it's only for New Ulm kids?
The city attorney didn't have any concerns with that.
Because if I was a Gaylord student, graduated from Gaylord, even with honors, and I've got this opportunity to work in New Ulm, but I can't get any help because I'm not from New Ulm.
Well,
No,
they'd
they
still
can
qualify.
Still,
You just,
Don't get the extra little deal.
They just don't get part of the
Still get a
loan
deal, but
forgiven
not
like a
the
New
extra.
Ulm
All right,
graduate.
well, I just
Good question.
Yeah.
all right. Any more discussion on it?
A little more work there, too.
We're getting there.
Bring us
Yeah, we're
another
getting
draft
there.
back.
This might take a couple more meetings, yeah.
Okay, we'll go on to item 6. From the Economic Development Director, Assistant City Manager regarding activities during the month of July 2018. Chris?
All right. So the past month, met with insurance. I attended insurance broker meeting up at the New Ulm Medical Center and went out to a Heartland Energy conference in Sioux Falls to learn about their economic development programs that they have because the PUC might be doing something similar and just wanted to get familiar with the programs that they offer. Met with the Transportation Committee out at the New Ulm Medical Center, a group of people looking for transportation options within the city. And from that, we were actually able to get 2 cab companies here in the city, Cato Cabs and Ready to Ride. and they are up in operations and ready to ride. Actually rented a spot, an office above the chamber, so they actually opened up a little satellite office out here, so that was good for the city. Met with Windings VP about their relocation and finalizing everything. I am sending out their job creation fund application and their the Minnesota Investment Fund application out today to deed, and they're looking to close towards the end of the month. DLC, if you notice, there's no more corn out in their lot, and so they're looking to move forward. We are looking at a tentative closing date of August 24th for purchase and sale of that lot. But we will be going back to council on the 21st. There was an issue with who is going to pay for the crop damage, so that item will be coming to the council on the 21st for your authorization. Met with Toby Fryer, president of New Ulm Medical Center, sat down and just talked with him about things that the hospital was doing and just getting information and getting familiar with what they provide up there. They met with Les and Denny Warda and Cara over to talk about her burgers and kind of the history of downtown. And then we still are in the process of the 2 EDA commercial rehab loans that are pending.
Okay, thank you. Have a motion accept as report?
I'll move it. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not?
Chris wanted to bring up just
Oh, right.
a couple
Okay.
items before we adjourn.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Chris, go ahead.
Okay, so one issue, it's a big thing in our community is childcare, and so we were wondering if you wanted to start discussions about maybe using some of the EDA money to look at different programs that we can put together, kind of like we're doing with some of the rent stuff, just bringing draft programs to you and then starting those discussions to see if we can help alleviate some of the childcare issues that are going on in our city. I'm meeting with the city manager of St. Peter's this Friday to see they have some programs that have helped their childcare needs, and seeing if it's something that we could use here or emulate here. So that's something that we'll be bringing forward, and if it's something you want us to actually pursue down the line.
I guess my comment is if your plate's big enough, put it on it.
Okay.
I think any ideas to help alleviate
Yeah.
those issues in this area would be good to hear.
Okay.
Are you guys speaking as parents by any chance?
No, grandparents.
And grandparents,
Parents and
yeah,
grandparents.
absolutely.
And we did work on this issue a little bit last couple of years ago, and I don't know if you've looked back through some of that material, but we had a pretty good product happening a couple of years ago, and we hired a coordinator to kind of help improve daycare in the whole county, because we started it, and then right away Sleepy Eye and Springfield jumped on board and wanted to get involved. Smith helped us a lot.
Okay.
And we got a grant through them to hire a coordinator. We do have a fairly large, I shouldn't say fairly large, we do have a child care center opening.
Yep.
Working on that, you probably know that already. So we got a little bit happening in town. But our local county folks are very workable and and they have all the stats about who's opening and who's closing, and yeah, it's a need. It's going to be a constant need, constant issue. But maybe Smith can come back and help us with some funding and help us again. I think that was the real target, was looking at opportunities to bring in daycares into. One of the trainings that I went to when I was working on this project was not bringing them into a business, but to bring, because that apparently is I won't go into the long spiel, but the short version was to bring them in more into the communities, into a school, into a church, was a better way of a business model than to bringing it into an actual craft or a 3M. And there's a variety of reasons, we could talk about it later, but into the community was a much better model. So.
And then the Milford Heights.
Oh, yeah. And then we were looking possibly as part of the Housing Institute was putting together kind of an RFP for the Milford Height lots is one of the projects. We're looking at going to developers, I think in October now, December, and kind of marketing those lots to those developers, like, hey, here's 9 lots that are available for you to possibly develop, and see if there's any takers there. But then we would have this piece, if we ever just wanted to go out to do an RFP for proposals outside of that, if there were no takers there, as a package deal, and that work would already be done.
It's sort of a homework project that we have to do, so we thought we may as well make it somewhat real world and use it to address an actual need we have in the community, and we still want to try to market the remaining lots in Milford Phase 1. So we thought we'd do 2 birds here with.
Let's do it.
Sounds great.
And I think in the last, maybe it was yesterday, didn't we get an email on a program for affordable housing? It's just in the last day. I'll go back and take a look at it. I thought I forwarded it on, but there might be, a state program where we can tie in 1 or 2 lots into a new effort through the state.
I think it's worth looking into. I mean, with all the action going up there, maybe everything will work out great.
Yeah.
So. Anybody else have anything they want to discuss? Or seeing none, accept the motion, accept it. Oh, we did. Okay. So no more business? Meeting adjourned.
There we go.